Good morning. We're going to call this first meeting of the 2024 Interim Joint Committee on Education to order. Actually, this is the first interim committee meeting of any of the committee meetings, so we're glad to be going first this morning. I'm going to ask all members and guests to please silence your cell phones. Let me looking around the room here. I know we have a new member on IJCE. I'm looking for her here. She's running a little late. Well, we're going to have Representative Proctor's going to be joining us on the committee, so we'll welcome her in a minute. But we also have a new staff. I want to introduce Ms. Emily Wiley. She's a new legislative analyst, and the way you guys file bills, the staff needs all the good analysts they can get, so we're glad to have Emily on board and joining us today. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll, Senator Funke Fromeyer, Senator Givens, Senator Higdon, Senator Meredith, Senator Neal, Senator Stivers, Senator Thomas, Senator Tishner, Senator Williams,
Here.
Senator Wilson,
Here.
Senator Wise,
Here.
Representative Baker, Representative Ballman, Representative Bojanowski,
Here.
Representative Brown, Representative Emily Callaway,
Present.
Representative Josh Callaway,
Present.
Representative Decker, Representative Doan,
Present.
Representative Jackson,
Present.
Representative Lewis,
Present.
Representative Massaroni,
Here.
Representative McCool,
Here.
Representative Proctor, Representative Rayburn,
Here.
Representative Rawlings, Representative Raymond, Representative Riley,
Here.
Representative Timoney,
Here.
Representative Truitt,
Here.
Representative Wilner, Co-Chair West,
Here.
Co-Chair Tipton.
Here. We have a quorum. Great, thank you so much. This time I want to recognize our co-chair, Senator West. Do you have any comments before we begin?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. We'll proceed then. Any other members have any other introductions? Senator Tishner.
Yes, I have a guest sitting next to me, Mariana Grovova, and she's going to be interning with me through the interim session.
Mariana, glad to have you with us today. Any other members have any introductions? Well, I guess it's time to get to business. Our first item on the agenda today is an update from Kentucky State University on House Bill 250. I know there are several representatives from the school here, so please come forward. Just make sure your microphones are turned on, that green light is on, and you probably need to pull those microphones fairly close to you so that we can hear sometimes that they are an issue. Now, as a general practice, I do administer an oath to all presenters, so please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please introduce yourself for the records, and then you may proceed.
Good morning.
Make sure that microphone is on.
All right, now it's green. Good morning. My name is Regent Tammy Dukes. I'm the chair of the Board of Regents for Kentucky State University.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Stephanie Mayberry, Vice Provost of Student Affairs.
All right.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Michael Daly. I am the Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs.
Okay, we're glad you're here this morning. I spoke with President Apaka. He was very sad that he could not be here today, but he already had plans and was traveling, so we're glad you're here to represent the university today. So please go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. He sends his regards for sure. Good morning, Co-Chair Representative Tipton and Senator West, and the distinguished members of the Interim Joint Committee on Education. On behalf of Kentucky State University, I am honored to stand before you today. I would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to the members of the committee and the entire General Assembly for your historic investment in the future of Kentucky State University for the upcoming biennium. The largest general fund in our history, the nearly 400% increase in asset preservation, and the $5 million for the planning and design of the new Health Science Education Building have not gone unnoticed. In addition, your support, particularly through the passing of House Bill 250 in 2022, has been pivotal in our journey towards realizing measurable outcomes and fostering a brighter future for our students and the Commonwealth. Over the past 2 years, the enactment of House Bill 250, Kentucky State University has undertaken significant actions to align with the goals set forth with the Council of Post-Secondary Education. We have made considerable strides in enhancing our institutional effectiveness, our financial stability, and academic excellence. Your unwavering commitment has enabled us to implement critical reforms and improvements that are already yielding positive results. One of the most significant milestones in our recent history is the hiring of Dr. Coffee C. Akapo as the 19th president of Kentucky State University. In the 11th months since he's been here, his visionary leadership has been transformative. Under his guidance, we have expanded our partnerships with high schools across Kentucky and neighboring states, creating pathways for students to seamlessly transition to KSU through articulation agreements and various institutions. While Dr. Capo is currently out of the Commonwealth on a long-planned trip abroad, expanding access for students to attend Kentucky State University and for KSU partnerships with international businesses to grow its reach benefiting the Commonwealth. His mission and the mission of KSU remains centered on the expanding access for students to attend KSU and forging partnerships with international businesses. These efforts are aimed at broadening our reach and bringing greater benefits to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This year, our focus has been directed towards 3 primary goals. First, to balance the budget. Second, to ensure robust internal controls across the organization. And third, to grow the enrollment of Kentucky State University. These goals are integral to our strategy for sustainable growth and long-term success. I am now pleased to introduce our provost, Dr. Michael D. Daly, who will provide further insight into our initiatives and the progress we are making. Thank you once again for your support and dedication to the future of Kentucky State University.
Thank you, Chair Dukes. We appreciate the introduction. We appreciate, the opportunity to be here to share with you. I'm going to speak to you briefly about the Management Improvement Plan. As you know, Management Improvement Plan was very much a part of Kentucky State University's relationship with the Council on Post-Secondary Education and our obligation to support the investment that you have made. As you see on your screen, House Bill 250 and the Management Improvement Plan, we've completed 53 of the objectives, which is 41%, and we have 72 that are in progress and 3 that are pending, and likely more that will be pending before the end of this month. The Management Improvement Plan has given us an opportunity, as Chair Dukes mentioned, to reestablish and put in place internal controls, which you'll hear more about later on in the presentation. We've also had a chance to focus in on opportunities to grow our enrollment. Again, with Dr. Mabry, we'll share that. And then finally, to look at the academic programming and to make sure the students are having a rigorous learning, student-centered experience at Kentucky State University that influence and impact the Commonwealth in terms of what the demand is. So you will see and hear some of those things related to the programming. We can go into the next slide unless there are questions. Okay. I will turn it over to Dr. Mabry to discuss our enrollment.
So at the beginning of our fiscal year, our admissions office was depleted. So we spent a good portion of our year rebuilding, and so we are still happy to report that we're on track to meet our enrollment goals. We've had over 2,500 applications that are complete or incomplete, and 1,296 that are completed applications, and we've admitted 1,206 students. Right now, it looks like about 41% of those students are from Kentucky, 59 are from out of state, typically Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. And we have 206 that have scheduled orientation. We are still working to increase that number with high school graduations just recently completed here in Kentucky and the surrounding states. We will start to see more of those students register for our new student orientation and come in to Kentucky State. In addition to our first-time, full-time freshmen, we are also looking to increase our numbers for transfer students. So we have 90 students that are currently in planned and scheduled orientation to participate in our transfer orientation. 42 graduate students, so we are growing that. We've doubled that number. And then our continuing students is currently at the time we had to submit this was at 638. It is now 665. So we're continuing to grow that, just shifting the culture to making sure that students are registered before they leave campus. But we have done great strides, but we'll continue to do that. In addition to that, we anticipate 1,000 dual credit students in the fall. The reason why this is just a projected number is because those enrollments happen in August when students return to their high school districts. We are really working and being intentional about our outreach and efforts to yield those students. We have hosted admitted student receptions in Louisville and Lexington and look to expand those in the coming year. We have assigned advisor outreach to ensure that our advisors are reaching out to students to ensure that they are enrolled for the fall semester. We generate weekly email reminders for students to sign up for the new student orientation, but we're also doing handwritten postcard campaigns, and for those students that have stopped out or those students have stopped out for whether that's a conduct issue or for their grades, financial aid, those issues, we are readmitting those students as well. For financial aid, we've awarded $16 million over this past year to students in academic year 23-24. Our FAFSA numbers are lower than previous years due to the FAFSA rollout. That's impacting every institution across the country, but we are still working to include that to improve those numbers, and we've just spoke about how we'll reach out to those students that are registered that haven't completed the FAFSA to ensure that that's done before they return in the fall. Right now, we have 3,276 FAFSAs completed. This morning, I received a report that that number is now 6,000. So we are continuing to do that work to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students and that they have a financial path to continue at Kentucky State. In addition to that, our financial aid staff are currently loading the 24-25 ICERs. That is, again, a delay from the Department of Ed, but we are ready to start packaging students. We'll be able to do that next week, and we are continuing, again, to ensure that our registered students have completed the 24-25 FAFSA. We were asked to report on our progress with our student success outcomes. Last year, we had a retention rate of 61%. Right now, we're setting at 66.54% for this year, but that is projected to be 75% once we have all those students, continuing students registered for the fall semester. So we are on track to improve dramatically in that area. Graduation rates. Last year, we were, with the 6-year graduation rate, we were at 28%. This year, we've been intentional about our work with our graduating seniors, and we were able to get that number up to 34% this year. We are still continuing to improve that. That's not where we want to stay. That's not our benchmark, but it is improvement over the last year. I will turn it over now to Ms. Linton, who's doing it?
This is me.
This is you? Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. what you have before you is a clip from the performance funding model from our Council on Post-Secondary Education that was shared with us about a week or so ago. And what I wanted to share, or what we wanted to share with you, is that there are, of the public institutions in the Commonwealth, there are 3 that met more than 6 objectives in the metric under the performance funding. Kentucky State University is one of those that met 6 out of the 10, and then there are 2 other universities that met 8 out of 10. And we are showing this as progress, but we also want to show you this because there's some things we have to do. Obviously, we want to make sure we look at our student progression at the 30-hour rate. We are meeting it at 60 and 90, but in that first year, which is real critical for freshmen to matriculate to that sophomore year, we are investing a lot of time and support to make sure those students are on track and on pathway to complete their education.
Okay.
And at this time, we'll have our CFO come forward and also a person in charge of our facilities management to share the remainder of the presentation with you.
You can pull in it. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to ask the new 2 presenters to introduce yourself for the record, and then I will administer the oath to you.
Good morning. I'm Vicki Dunaway. I am the CFO, Vice President of Kentucky State University. I've been there since March 18th.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Linton. I'm the Director of Capital Planning and Facilities Management for Kentucky
Please raise
State.
your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and please present with your part. Go ahead with your part of the presentation.
Ms. Linton, do you want to start with your health sciences? I will talk about first, though, that we are projecting a fund balance this year. I think that would be good news for all of you to hear. I come, just a little bit of my history, I come from the University of Kentucky, retired there after 30 years, and I'm excited to be at Kentucky State with all the progress that we are making. So we are projecting a fund balance, which has not been the case in the last few years. And we have also tightened up our purse strings in regards to spending. And we hope to meet all our management improvement milestone plans within the next 6 months, if not before, in regards to many of the policies and procedures and workflows that we are implementing to streamline all our processes and make sure that we're following all accepted principles, whether it be federal, state, or legislative regulated.
Okay, and I'm going to talk about our capital plan and where we're at with the funding that was received in this year's budget for the next biennium. As you know, we were appropriated $5 million for the design of the health science building. That appropriation is for fiscal year 26, so we won't be able to begin that process till the spring of 25, with an award in July of 25 to start the process for that design of the new health science building. And this process will actually allow us the time and the ability to plan and design the building to a specific budget instead of being given a budget that we have to design to that budget. We'll be able to create our budget for what's needed for this process. And then we've already started. You want to go to the next slide, Vicki? Oh. For we were also appropriated $60 million for the upcoming biennium in asset preservation funds, $30 million in each of the bienniums. We have several projects already planned, and we're actually using some of the current biennium's asset preservation funds to design some of those projects to get them started. So we have plans for Chandler Hall renovation. We've actually already started that design process, and we'll be using the new biennium's asset preservation funds for that project. Kentucky Hall is another one of our residence halls that will undergo a complete renovation. We're looking at renovating Carver Hall that will help with our engineering program that we are working on to make it a better suited space for the engineering program. We are also working on a door access control project to make our campus a safer place. We're continuing lots of deferred maintenance, mainly related to mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, HVAC upgrades, and repairs and replacements. We're back on academic affairs.
Oh,
one of the or some of the next critical updates that we've been able to do as a part of the Management Improvement Plan, House Bill 250, and your investment is to reinvest in academic and student affairs. You've heard efforts related to our enrollment and efforts to make sure that we are growing our retention and graduation rate. But this started with establishing 3 colleges and that restructuring actually of academic and student affairs. We brought those 2 entities together to have seamless communication about the well-rounded student, the student that needs to make continuous progress, continuous growth, and achievement. And we identified and hired 2 extremely capable people, one in Dr. Mayberry, the other in Dr. Scott Wicker, to lead both academic and student affairs sides of things. The next step was to then establish the 3 colleges. We had 2 colleges prior to that, and they really didn't align well with what would attract students to come to Kentucky State University. And so under Dr. Capo's leadership, we were able to develop and establish those 3 colleges, one being Business, Engineering, and Technology. One is the College of Agriculture, Health Sciences, and Natural Resources. And then the third is the College of Arts and Sciences. That was approved by the board. We've moved forward with that. We are filling some vacant positions related to our new college, which is Business, Engineering, and Technology. And we're rolling forward with those colleges being and marketing their programs across the university and obviously across the Commonwealth. Some of the new programs that we did propose were approved on February 16th at the board meeting. That would include the proposals for our 3 new engineering program that are submitted actually to our Council on Post-Secondary Education, are pending approval. One of those programs is a bachelor's in cybersecurity. We already have a cybersecurity program, but it was part of our computer science, and based on demand, we are expanding that program to have its own standalone bachelor's. I believe you all had a meeting with sister institutions, and we were included about cybersecurity sometime last year. We also proposed a mechanical engineering and an agricultural engineering, being one of 2 land-grant institutions. Agriculture is definitely within our space, and it is a growing. And as you heard our chair mention, Dr. Acoppo is making some international connections. Many of those international connections for students, as well as the opportunity to work collaboratively across and abroad, is related to agriculture. And just this morning, we were talking to Dr. Acoppo as he was turning in for the evening to give us a pep talk and encourage us here. He did mention that we've just recently been approved to have a study abroad program for our students to travel. The program inventory was one of the things that in the management improvement plan that was required. We approach this as, let's look at where we are, what we need. Let's streamline some of the things that we may not need, or it may not be producing the credit hour production or the student enrollment that we need. We met actually at the Council on Post-Secondary Education. We had faculty, staff, and administrators involved. We met a solid 2 days, was interrupted by a storm, so we had to come back the next week. Last year, and what we did was streamlined our curriculum. We streamlined our programs. The general education curriculum has been redesigned, so it's an efficient process, so students can see from beginning to end where their pathway is going, how much they need to take for whatever degree pathway they have chosen, and the opportunity for us to do that is allowing us to have things like articulation agreements with our community college partners, so that there's a seamless, credit hours do transfer, but they don't all count. So what we've done is intentionally focus on making sure that when credit hours transfer, they do count and those students can move forward. Finally, the redesign of our first year experience is actually from a grant that Dr. Mayberry facilitated. We have other faculty members involved, and we're redesigning that so that it's essential to navigating college successfully. Again, that's an effort at retention. It's an effort at success within that first year, so you'll see that 30 hour credit hour mark increase because of this redesign. We want to launch this program not only to teach them how to navigate college, but also looking at those soft skills, and especially those 10 essential skills that are part of the graduate profile and the efforts that CPE has done across the Commonwealth to elevate student success in Kentucky. A couple of the other things that are to be noted is our Credit for Life. We recognize that there are 600,000 Commonwealth citizens with some credits but no no degree or no credential. And so that Credit for Life and Work Experience Handbook, and actually as a part of the Center for Global Relations that was created and approved by the Board of Regents, is our effort to reach out to those Commonwealth citizens to make sure they have access to continuing education opportunities. We have a facilitator for that department, and they're reaching out constantly, working collaboratively with our admissions office to make sure that those students have an opportunity. As part of the government relations work, we have reestablished our relationship with our state government partners here in Frankfort, and we already have some state employees that have reached out to us about continuing their education and advancing their education. The next thing was the Center for the Global and Learning and International Studies. We've already alluded to that is growing through Dr. Akapol's effort. We have a director of that program. We've already had students travel abroad. We've had an opportunity to take graduate students with us to Detroit, Michigan. We were invited to come and meet with the ambassador from Ghana. So those efforts, we had our first International Student Day on campus that the students organized and facilitated this past spring, and it was a grand event. All right. One of the items in the management improvement plan that has caught a lot of attention was how do you redesign an effective online program? And so the opportunity to work collaboratively through an RFP process and with our partners at the Council on Post-Secondary Education, I'm proud to say that KYSU Online actually launched June 1st. We have been working on curriculum redesign, curriculum structures, government policies. We've had faculty professional development that's been ongoing, and the marketing campaign is underway. We were on a conversation, text messaging, and calling back and forth with our team members with our RFP, and they're supposed to get us data today, just from June 1st to present, to see how many people of interest that we've created based on this campaign. The online program, it is designed to set us apart as and operate in the spaces online as a high quality, high functioning, efficient pathway through Kentucky State University for degree opportunities. And on the next slide, I'll show you some of the programs that will launch this fall. We will have our Bachelor's of Criminal Justice. The Bachelor of Social Work program to go online has been proposed. We have submitted that to the Council on Post-Secondary Education as a change in modality. I mentioned earlier the cybersecurity program that is waiting for approval also. We have a Bachelor's in Business Administration, and what has been the Bachelor's in Liberal Studies, which will continue to be, we actually expanded that for interdisciplinary studies, going back to that, addressing those adult learners that are in the Commonwealth, because many of them own businesses. Many of them work already in the Commonwealth and are contributing, but they want to grow, they want to develop. And so we are included or expanded in interdisciplinary studies so they could come in, get credit for that work-life balance and effort, and then move into a field. So they may not go to liberal studies, they may go into business, they may go into cybersecurity or so forth and so on. And as you know, we have a Doctorate of Nursing program, and that is expanding. We are proposing with them and their accrediting body that we offer not only just the DNP, but the DNP with the emphasis on nursing educators. And that is an opportunity to earn a certificate as a master in nursing or as a doctor in nursing, because we are hearing and the data is showing that there's a shortage of not just nurses, but those who can train and teach and prepare nurses to be in the field. And then finally, our RSN to BSN program in nursing is the other program that's going online. We have several. On the next slide, we'll show you those that we're proposing to move forward with. In the spring, we will launch our master's program in business administration online, the arts, interdisciplinary science behavior, which has been online, but we have revived that program and redesigned it. And so that's focuses on psychology and interdisciplinary behavioral sciences. We're proposing a master's in social work and a master's in criminal justice. Both those programs have approved the internal process through our faculty senate and will be proposed to our board. And then the next step is with our Council on Post-Secondary Education. That concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Daly, Chairman Dukes, and others. We appreciate your input. It is encouraging to hear the good news is happening. We do have some members with questions. I have several. I'm going to ask one now and wait till the end, maybe ask some more if we have time. Mm-hmm. It has come to my attention recently that in recent months, the relationship between Kentucky State University, KSU Regents, and the foundation board for KSU has been pretty much non-existent. I believe that the Board of Regents recently, for lack of a better term, disassociated herself from the foundation board. Chairman Dukes, could you elaborate on what's going on there and what needs to go forward for Kentucky State University to have a strong group of alumni and supporters to help the university?
Yes, absolutely. So over the past 2 years since I've been on the board, we have made countless attempts to forge and collaborate with the KSU Foundation. We've invited them to not only our board meetings, but our various committee meetings, our investment committee, investment and advancement committee meetings. Yet we have had no real success in forging those relationships. In addition, we've also been asking for information, financial information, as it relates to the endowments and all the funds that are being managed through the foundation, and have received sporadic, incomplete information over the last 2 years. And as you may know, this information is critical in us making sure that our annual financial audit as well as our compliance audits are completed year over year, and yet we continue to have issues when it comes to getting information as it relates to the foundation. And so in recent months, we've had several conversations with, Dr. Acapo as well as others within the organization to determine what we need to do, because this definitely does put the university at risk. And in light of all of the litigation that's going on between the State Journal and the foundation, we found it to be in our best interest, Kentucky State University's best interest, to halt any additional funds to go into the foundation until we receive 3 items. We requested 3 items. Number 1, to end the KSU Foundation lawsuit with Frankfurt News Media. 2, to provide the records as requested for numerous occasions by KSU. And thirdly, to schedule a meeting so that we can revise and modify the current MOU that's in place with the foundation. And yet, on all 3 of those matters, we continue to see no progress.
Well, thank you for that update. Am I correct that the foundation is asserting that it is not a governmental entity and not subject to open records request?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Kentucky State University was formed by act of the Kentucky General Assembly. The foundation board was formed by an act of Kentucky State University Board of Regents. That is correct.
That is correct.
Okay, well, we'll be monitoring the situation. Hopefully that this can be resolved very soon. We do have some members with some questions. Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman Tipton. And as I indicated previously, I have several, but you are the chair, so feel free to cut me off at any point. Okay, I appreciate that. Dr. Daly, it's good to see you again, sir. Dr. Daly, I want to begin by saying I'm aware that at your most recent graduation, it was announced that you had a record number of degrees granted. You didn't mention that. Could you elaborate on the fact that this was the highest number of degrees ever awarded by Kentucky State University at any commencement exercise?
Yes, sir. We had the largest graduating class that we have received or have had in the history of Kentucky State University. Over 300 degrees were awarded, including our associate's degree pathway, which is a partnership collaboration through dual credit at Frankfurt High School. So we had those students. We had associate degree members. We had bachelor's and graduate degrees at that time, and then 4 honorary doctorates. 1 for a nurse who was actually strategically or essentially involved in the developing the cure for tuberculosis.
Okay. Secondly, Dr. Daly, as you know, graduation rates are very important to us as members of the General Assembly. We fund state universities, and what we want to see are degrees being granted. I noticed that in your report, you indicated that your graduation rate went up by almost 25% in Dr. Capo's first year, from 28% to 34%. Can you tell us what you attribute to that significant increase in your graduation rate in your 1 year, and what do you project that to be over years 2 and 3? Because obviously, as you said, that 34% rate is not sufficient, but it is going to climb. So can you discuss, again, what happened this year to see almost a 25% in the graduation rate at Kentucky State University, and where you seeing that going in year 2 and in year 3?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Mayberry again at the table. The efforts that were made by Dr. Mayberry and her team started with retention, and also on the academic side, with Dr. Wicker was saying, okay, where are our students? What do they need to graduate? Let's address the curriculum issue and the gaps in the curriculum. So we closed very quickly the gaps in curriculum. There shouldn't be a reason why a student is at a point where they reach a flat line. They should be making continuous progress. So we put in things in places like degree audit processes. They were already there, but they weren't done consistently. So we wanted to make sure we did that. We also evaluated the pathways that the students were on, making sure that there weren't any barriers in that aspect, and then the wraparound services to support those students that I'm going to ask Dr. Mayberry to speak to.
Yes, Dr. Mayberry.
Yeah. So we were very intentional about the way that we approached the cohort this year. We restructured the student affairs unit to have a student success piece that had advising at the forefront. And we wanted to make sure that the students were receiving the intentional advising to get them through. What we also noticed in analyzing the data was that the students are coming back to Kentucky State, but they weren't progressing at the rates that we wanted them to. So we were very intentional about the work that we were doing, and we had professional development across our unit to make sure that we had a plan for the students to get through, and intentional pathways and intentional work to do that. Another thing that we were able to do is that we relocated most of our student affairs staff to the third floor of the student center. That way it created a one-stop shop for our students to come and get everything that they needed. We didn't have to send them, if they were missing something, we didn't have to send them across campus and then back to us and then back across campus. We were making sure that they knew that this was a place that I could come and get the help that I need. And so we saw an increase in traffic with students coming in and being engaged with the work as well, and taking accountability on themselves to make sure that they were doing what we expected.
And then my third and final question, Dr. Mayberry, obviously we want to see students graduate. That's why they come there, and that's why we finance Kentucky State University, because we want to see them graduate. And you seem to be doing that well. I want to have to turn to enrollment, because you got to have students to graduate students. You indicated in your presentation that you had 638 continuing students. You had over 1,200 students that already been accepted and completed. What do you project Kentucky? This question is a two-part question, Dr. Mayberry, and Dr. Daly, please feel free to add. One is, what do you project your 2024-2025 enrollment to be? And then my second question is just one informational. What could be the maximum enrollment of Kentucky State University right now? If you were going to be bursting at the seams, what would be your maximum enrollment you could take for students right now? So it's a two-part question.
Okay. So from the day that Dr. Capo stepped on campus, he gave us the goal. The goal is 3,000 students, and we're working to get there. And we feel pretty confident that we're going to get there. We're going to be very close to that number. As far as the way that we'll continue to try to grow that enrollment and where we think our max is, our max is likely between 6,000 and 8,000 for the campus. Can we house all of those students? No, but we are looking at other alternatives to make sure that as we grow, we have space for the students here, because Frankfort is not a big city, so there's not a lot of off-campus options for our students, so we're going to have to make sure that we can house them if they come. But we are intentional about our efforts in trying to be intentional in making sure that we have students from the surrounding areas, so Lawrenceburg, Versailles, Georgetown, Frankfurt, those students can commute. And so we can grow in that way. So we're intentional in that recruitment plan as well.
And I would say with we don't have the projections yet because we just launched June 1st. Then you can anticipate icing on that cake to be the enrollment of online students, fully online students. And we've done some intentional work around separating the two campuses, if you will, under the umbrella of Kentucky State University, so we can clearly articulate these are fully online students and these are our residential students, where they're commuting or they're on campus.
Chair, that exhausts my question.
All right, thank you, Senator Thomas. Co-Chair West has a question or comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a series of questions, but they're all pretty generic and should be pretty short. Just general numbers. If you could refresh our memory on some of these things, and I don't care who answers this, anyone feel free to answer, but what is your total enrollment now at the university?
So from the 23-24, our total enrollment was approximately 1,700 students.
1,700. Does that include the new enrollment? The 12?
That does not.
Okay. So back to your new enrollment, the 1206. Refresh our memory on historically, past 3, 4, 5 years, what has that new enrollment been for K-State?
So the new enrollment hovers around 350 to 400. So we're looking to surpass that significantly.
So in the past several years, it's been 300 to 400.
In new incoming first-time, full-time freshmen, yes.
So 1206 is kind of blowing that out of the water, right?
Yes.
Your prior, okay. Current total employees. Do you have a number? How many employees does K-State have? Roughly, we don't.
And part-time inclusive, about 500 now.
Okay.
500.
About full-time and part-time, Dr. Dunaway.
Okay. And then my final question, this goes to the foundation. And from your previous testimony, it appears you may or may not know the answer to this question, but do we have a general idea of how much money is in the foundation?
Yes, approximately $23 million.
Okay. So although we may not have exact, precise reports, we do have a general idea of what the corpus of the foundation is. So that should be up around $23 million.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next question from Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Thank you. I'm hidden behind this handsome fella. So, congratulations on your momentum. It clearly appears that you have some momentum. The couple numbers in Northern Kentucky, you did not mention an interest in pursuing people from Northern Kentucky, but we're one of the largest metropolitan service areas. So help me understand how Northern Kentucky's been excluded from your pursuit of students.
It has not. We have hired 5 admission specialists, and we've divided the state among them. And so we do have a contact there in the Northern Kentucky area. What we're looking to do is to continue to grow. We know that Lexington and Louisville is where we had our admitted student reception this year, but we are intentional about making sure that we add Northern Kentucky, Bowling Green, and Christian County in our expansion next year.
I'll be very pleased to meet your person in Northern Kentucky if
Absolutely.
I could get an introduction as soon as possible.
Absolutely do
But you
that.
did not mention that. You only mentioned Lexington and Louisville.
Yes,
But
that's where we had the receptions, but we're intentional about whole state, the entire Commonwealth.
so leading to that then, when you described for us that your current enrollment is about 1,700, how many would actually live on campus?
We have the capacity to have about 1,200 students on campus.
And how many are there today? I just drove by on my way here from Northern Kentucky and I didn't see much activity.
There are not many today. Our semester ended on May 9th, and so we just have summer school students there right now. We also have several summer camps that will be coming this week, but we have summer schools offered, but we have online classes for those students.
So this is kind of tying into what we're experiencing at Northern Kentucky University as well. We have a housing shortage in Kentucky, but we don't seem to have a shortage of dormitory housing. But we don't seem to have many people living in dormitory housing. What considerations are underway to allow year-round residential? Because when I look at the matriculation of a freshman to a sophomore, it seems to be suffering. But I'm referring to my own life as a child in DeMossville. Had I been able to stay in Lexington, then I probably would have over the summer. And because I worked full-time in college, but I lived in the dorm full-time up until my junior year, actually up until my senior year. So I wonder how many of our students, and as you describe the students you're pursuing, sounds a lot like a funky from DeMossville, Kentucky. But what's underway to fill up our dormitories and maintain that consistency of housing for our people?
So we have several students that are on campus that have internships that are staying here over the summer because for various reasons. We have a career services director who's been intentional about building partnerships so that we have opportunities for students in the summer and all year round. We are looking to do that, but another way that we're able to generate revenue is to have summer camps offered, and if we have it full of students, we wouldn't be able to do that. So this is just another way to attract the cheerleading camps and the band camps and all of those other summer camps to Kentucky State, which we also think will be crucial to our recruitment in the future.
And just to be clear, your availability of housing is what number?
1,200.
And you have how many living in the housing?
Over the fall and spring, it's at capacity.
Great.
Yeah, just so you know that we just launched a STEM summer camp Sunday. So those are dual credit students from various areas across the state that have come here for the STEM camp. We will have a partnership with Morehouse from Atlanta, Kentucky State University, and CHI Health for another STEM camp specifically focusing on health fields. And that'll be in latter July?
Yes, at
latter
July.
So, and then the agriculture department has a summer camp as well. So all of those bring the potential of residential students staying, and Dr. Mayberry and her team has done a really good job of making that an affordable opportunity, but also putting our best foot forward. So they're staying in the new facility, so they get a chance to see what that's like and have the college experience for being a residential student.
I love your momentum. We'll keep helping.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Senator Meredith is next, and then I will have the final question before we have to go to the next agenda item. Senator Meredith.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Very encouraging, particularly that we may have a fund balance this year, but I appreciate the ownership that each of you have shown for the university and very promising future. Question I have is pretty straightforward. Going back to your enrollment number, 41% in-state, 59% out-of-state. What that tells me, we've got tremendous potential here within Kentucky to recruit more students. You've kind of elaborated a little bit that you've hired 5 regional coordinators to do this. How are we getting that message out to high school students on a practical basis?
So I'll be honest that we started behind the 8 ball this year. Those 5 were not in place until January, and the prime recruitment time is September to October. And so we feel confident that we'll be able to get into the high schools. We've been building those relationships all semester so that we can go right into those high schools in the fall so that we have a presence. What we did learn is that because we hadn't been recruiting in Kentucky very heavily, some students didn't even know Kentucky State existed. And so we are being intentional about building the relationships with counselors as a viable option for the students, as well as with the students and families, so that they're aware of Kentucky State as an affordable option in Kentucky.
I appreciate your candid response to that, because I agree. I don't think many people throughout the state know about Kentucky State University. And when we're in session, I drive by it every day. I think here's a great campus, a great opportunity. So wish you the best of success. I think you got a great game plan, but thank you.
Senator Meredith, just to let you know, Dr. Mayberry and myself, along with Dr. Acapo, have traveled to, I've lost count the number of high schools in the state of Kentucky we've been to where we've met with either local superintendents, high school counselors. We've been Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green, Paducah. So there are other places scheduled for the fall and possibly this summer. So the president himself is making face-to-face contact with superintendents and high school principals around the state.
Well, let me know when you come to Litchfield, okay?
Definitely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Chairman Dukes, seems like I'm the one asking the tough questions.
No, that's quite okay.
On December 3rd of last year, KSU Sachs placed in a warning letter to KSU for non-compliance on several accreditation rules. I understand a lot of those things happened before you came on board. And I just want, if you could give the committee an update on where KSU is with addressing those issues and ensuring that there are no accreditation issues in the future.
Yeah, well, the main purpose for that was that we needed to have all of our annual audits current. And when I started on the board, we were 3 years behind on completing our audits. And so at the end of 2023, we had completed 2 of the 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, because now we're in another fiscal year. And so it's been primarily around getting those audits completed. Restructuring things that happened 2 years ago was pretty difficult. But now we're at a point where we've got our 2021 audit completed as well as our 2022 audit, and we're currently working on our 2023 audit. And we're working with our external audit firm to get those things in place and to make sure that we can give an update in the October 2024 meeting of SAC-COC. Demonstrates that we've gotten both our 2023 audit completed as well as our 2024 audit.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. I'm going to use my chairman's discretion and defer to seniority in the General Assembly. Senator Neal has requested to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that very much, and I do want to say that your reference to seniority is probably overstated. Let me just say this. I really don't have a question. I have to tell you, this is one of the most refreshing presentations that I've heard before this body. There's been many, but this is one of them. And it's very encouraging what I've heard here. And I think I'm speaking for most of the folks up here, and I haven't looked at facial expressions or anything, but it seems like you're on the right track and that you're doing the hard work and you're getting into the details necessary to lay the foundation to do those things that portend well for the future. So I want to congratulate you on your presentation and the transparency. And I just spoke to my colleague here. You can tell by your presentation that you own this, and that is very, very impressive. I just want to say that, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for deferring to me.
I'll use chairman's discretion again and defer to a freshman, Representative Emily Callaway.
Thank you, Chairman. I greatly appreciate that. And I do appreciate the wonderful presentation and the encouragement we've received today from hearing all of it. And I was drawn to the same statistic that Senator Meredith was drawn to, the 59% that we're seeing enrollment out of state, coming from out of state. That also is encouraging to me. And when you were talking about retention in students, you offered some type of wraparound services. And so looking ahead at these out of state that we're bringing in, what are we doing to retain them so that when they're graduated, how are we keeping them here?
Go ahead. You want me?
So I'm happy to report that 67% of our out-of-state students stay in Kentucky. And so we are encouraged by that, but we'll continue to give them opportunities. And I think some of the work that you all are doing is going to help drive that. We have some businesses, we have companies that are coming into Kentucky that will really attract those students and give them an opportunity post-graduation that will be better than they going back home for them. We are drawing a lot of students from Ohio. That's not far. So you can still be in Kentucky and still be close to family, as well as Indiana. So we feel pretty confident in have given them a pathway after KSU that looks like Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. And some of the efforts that you all have made to emphasize certain professions, nursing is one. We have 3 partnerships in nursing that secure a job for those candidates that graduate here, and those jobs are all in Kentucky. The School of Social Work, there's an initiative. I think University of Kentucky may be the fiscal agent, but there are public institutions that participate. We have Kentucky State University, the 3rd largest class participating in that social work program, and if those students successfully complete it, there's job opportunities in the state of Kentucky in the field of social work, and right now we have 6 that are on pathway to do just that.
All right. Thank you all so much for your presentation. I may see some of you tomorrow in the Budget Review Subcommittee for Education.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is Dr. John Gregory, Executive Director of the Office of Adult Education. If he will come forward, we're looking forward to this, to have this update. Dr. Gregory, I don't believe I had the opportunity to meet you up to now, so I'm glad you're able to make it today. So just make sure that microphone, the green light is on, and pull close to you. And if you will identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Dr. John C. Gregory, Executive Director of the Office of Adult Education, the Education and Labor Cabinet.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir, I do.
I appreciate that. And would you please proceed with your presentation?
Yes, sir. I have a presentation. I don't currently see it displayed on the screen there.
Somebody on staff is going to come down and help you with that.
Okay. Maybe I need to access this one.
Should be the second one there, just
All right. Outstanding.
and just this icon up here. There you go.
Outstanding. So, what I'm going to do as far as the topics are concerned, sir, is try to take you through what the actual purpose of adult education is, moving to the mission and some of the goals. So get into some data. So drill down a little bit as far as the GED is concerned. I recognize that that is something that is a concern. And then I have some real life from a qualitative standpoint, some success stories of persons in Kentucky that have come through this process. And then I have one slide as far as the budget is concerned. And then we're going to take a look at the way things that are going to happen in the future. So when you look at the actual purpose of adult education, the purpose is employment. The purpose is employment. Now, there is a significant piece as far as persons that have not completed the high school process, but that is a bridging strategy. It is to transition into the college space, whether you're trying to go the traditional route or you're trying to get some type of vocational training. That is significant. And then we also have the English language learning program. So when we look at and speak about the purpose of this, we need to look at this in totality. Yes, it is the GED, because we have 297,000 fine Kentuckians that have not completed that process. But it is GED and beyond. So when we're looking at the value, we need to look at it in totality. And then the mission statement is consistent with that. It is a continuum to employment, which includes those first two things that are bold. Employment is at the very end of that process. Now, how do we do the work? So this is what the footprint looks like as far as Kentucky is concerned. We have 26 local providers that cover the 120 counties that are embedded within the 10 local workforce boards. More specific breakdown of that, we have 14 of the KCTCS schools. We have one pure nonprofit. We have some boards of education. We have some consortiums, and we have one 4-year school still within the process. So that is how we look as far as the actual footprint. So those individuals that go out and do all of the instruction and the training and things of that nature across the 120 counties in the Commonwealth. Now, when we look at goals, there are 5 federal goals, because this is a federal program that is administered across the state. There are 5 federal goals. The employment rate, second and fourth quarter. You have the second bullet, which is the compensation piece as far as what they earn, credential attainment, those individuals that have transitioned into the college space, and then the only in-year goal is the measurable skill gain. So now, this following slide, there are 5 ways that a Kentuckian can receive a measurable skill gain. One is if they have not completed the, if they need to get a GED, then they get it. That's number 1. 2 is transition into the college space and get a transcript, things of that nature. 3 is a functional level gain. So just to give some context, some of the fine folks that we get start below the high school level. So if you pre-test them, and let's just say they test at the 7th grade level, and then you come later and you post-test them, and they are at the 9th grade level, that is a gain. Now, what is most significant are those last 2, workforce base. This is the combination of the literacy piece and the workplace training for a specific job, whether it is a carpenter, it is a welder, and things of that nature. It is that process, and then that last one deals with the workplace specifically, taking some type of test that gives you that vertical advancement and leads to increases on the job. So those are the 5 ways to get a measurable skill gain, and that is the only in-year performance goal. The other goals are once an individual has left the adult education process. So it's post 1 year, but this is the only in-year performance goal. So when we look at where Kentucky ranks, so we surpassed all of the goals last fiscal year. And more specifically, as far as the measurable skill gain, Kentucky ranked 15 out of 56. So we are in the top block as far as that is concerned from a measurable skill gain rate. That has led to the federal government saying that the goals as we move into the future have increased significantly. Specifically, when we look at the measurable skill gain rate, that has gone up from 46.20 to 51.50. So that is a significant jump, but I am quite sure that we will meet that, and we will certainly exceed that as far as the measurable skill gain rate is concerned. Now, as far as state is concerned, so we track 3 things. We track in enrollment, because we need folks to come in the door to be able to serve them. We track the measurable skill gain rate, which is obviously a federal requirement. And then in Kentucky, from a state level, we track the GED rate. And so those are the numbers for fiscal year, 24 are, so as of the 20th of May. Now, this next slide kind of digs into the GED. So when we look at it over a 5-year span, in fiscal year 19, that is the highest that the state has reached, because the so GED test changed in 2015, and so there was a dip in so fiscal year 20. So obviously fiscal year, but 21, you see the pandemic and those things. As far as that is concerned, we made a rebound in fiscal year 22. Likewise, last year and this year, we are trending to be somewhere around 3,200. So hopefully we can get north of 3,300. Now, the goal is 3,600. So just a little context as far as that is concerned. So when I started about 2.5 years ago, the goal was 5,000. But no one could articulate where that goal came from. So there was no formula behind it. So we looked at some of the data. We looked at some states across the union, and we saw from a eligible standpoint, those individuals that we serve to be in the top 10. That is a rate of 1.1% of the total folks that we can serve when we're speaking in terms of working age across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So that came out to 3,600. So that is a baseline goal. The intent is to go significantly beyond that, but that is a baseline goal, and it has the metrics behind it. So it's just not some number that somebody just pulled out of the sky as far as a goal is concerned. Now, when we look at the GED numbers, you need to encapsulate that with the measurable skill gain numbers, because if you look at going back a few years, Kentucky had 0 measurable skill gains when we speak in terms of the workplace training. So we went from 0 in fiscal year 21 to 519 last fiscal year, and we're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 650 to 700 this fiscal year. So once again, going back to the purpose of what this program is, it is to end with employment. Now, there are some steps in front of that process or doing that process, but that is actually what the federal law states. This is an employment program. So this speaks to that. Now, from a qualitative standpoint, just want to give you just a snapshot of some of the things and some of the people that have seen successes as far as a adult education is concerned. So these 3 individuals came through the program. The first one is a young lady who dropped out of high school because she was bullied. She now has gone on to receive her bachelor's degree. She's working on a master's degree, and she is an adult education instructor for Nelson County. The second gentleman hails from Haiti. He came through the adult education process. He completed his GED. He studied to be a welder, which he is, and now he is at WKU studying to be to receive his bachelor's. And then the final young lady comes from China, and she again came through the program, and she is doing wonderful things consistent with the other 2. Now, we are intentional in being in the second and fair chance space. So there's a program embedded within a adult education, which is called Putting Kentuckians First. And it is a transitional program for those persons who are transitioning out of that space and for persons who are currently in that space, because the goal is for them to have a job on day one. And this is a graphic of a class that is being taught in a facility, because we're trying to reach them where they are, so when they leave, they have the things required for employment and beyond. So likewise, this is another picture of folks that are graduating from the drug courts in Russell County, Russell and Wayne counties, and we are embedded within that space. So once again, when we go back to the purpose and the function, this is to lead to employment through education and training. And then, once again, this is another picture in a facility. And what is significant about this in Nelson County is there is a partnership that has been established with the Welding Institute of Bardstown. So these individuals are currently receiving training, and they will be certified as welders. So when they complete their time, then they will come out and actually be welders. So again, we go back to that employment piece. Now, from a partnership standpoint, this is a significant slide, and this is something, this particular company, they build huge systems. They build the, HVAC systems. And the majority of the persons that work on the brains of those systems are from Cuba. So they had a language problem. So we came in and we taught the language, and they have seen significant increases in multiple phases across the things that they do just because of that type of process. And we are continuing to partner with businesses because, once again, this is an employment process to be able to maximize all types of things across this spectrum. And this is just a snapshot of what the budget looks like for fiscal year. So 24, I'm quite sure you're pretty familiar with this breakdown. And so we're in the process of, once again, being very intentional as far as planning things across the partnership spectrum to be able to maximize so all of the things. So all Kentuckians that fit into this space, and if we just separate out just the GED, there are so 297,000 folks across the Commonwealth that have not yet completed the high school process. And we are looking to be the main forcing functions to bring them across that finish line. So when we look into the future, so we want to maximize this measurable skill gain growth, and we want to continue to improve as far as the partnership space is concerned. So when we look at the GED, the national pass rate is 75%. Kentucky currently sits at about 79%. Where we really need to be is 85 and up in order for us to continue to reduce that number. Now, this is what I will say. Something that is significant is the free GED a promo, because the cost to take the test, which is 4 components, is $144. And that has been a significant windfall because that is no longer a barrier for our folks that are going through that process. And that's going to be one of the stepping stones for us to exceed that goal and then to go beyond that goal. And then also continuing to maximize the opportunity in the second and fair chance place, jobs on day one. And we are going to continue to move forward in that process. So, and then lastly, if you think about that map that was displayed, the federal law requires that we conduct a multi-year grant process, and we are coming into a new grant cycle the beginning of the calendar year. And that is an opportunity to be able to perhaps identify some folks that come into the space that are new and that can help us as far as the state is concerned to continue to make some vertical advancement as far as adult education is concerned. So that is kind of a one over the world as far as what we're doing in the adult education space.
Well, Dr. Gregory, thank you so much for that presentation. As I recall, it was not too many years ago that number was much higher than 297,000. So apparently we're making progress. We need to continue to make progress. We do have some questions. First is Representative Bojanowski.
Yeah, thank you. So 297,000 people without a GED or diploma, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and we've got 11,284 involved in adult education. What are barriers to get, I mean, the hundreds of thousands of people from getting a GED or a high school diploma?
So one of the barriers is the visibility. As I'll be candid, is folks just don't know that we are out there. So we are trying to be more intentional as far as being so visible. Some additional barriers are not extraordinary. It's transportation, it is childcare, and it is the digital space because there are some spaces across this fine state that are dead spaces. So when we're speaking in terms of the virtual space, then that becomes a problem to a certain extent. So those are just a few of the things that are currently so barriers as far as that space is concerned, but we're working to mitigate those as best as possible.
May I ask one more brief question?
Please proceed.
Okay, so you mentioned a little bit about incarcerated individuals and does any incarcerated individual have access to an adult education program, or is it just limited to partnerships with agencies?
They all do. We are in the 13 prisons, and we are in all of the 76 jails as far as instructional services are concerned. Now, mind you, we are ramping back up from the pandemic because there was a significant time period when things were closed off. But we are in all of the facilities at this time. Not at the volume that we want to be or that we will be, but we're certainly ramping back up, and so we're going to get there very quickly. Yes, ma'am.
Next, I have a question from Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I appreciate you had the Nelson County Detention Center talked about the good work they're doing, and Representative Mascheroni and myself see firsthand the good work that Jailer Justin Hall does there, and other jails across the state, I'm sure, are doing similar programs, but that's a very special program. My question is about in adult education and the GED. We passed legislation several years ago where a student that drops out can go back online and complete their high school diploma. Do you encourage any of that in the adult education to get the high school diploma? Maybe if they've dropped out of school, and just like a few credits to graduate, or maybe their senior year to go back online and do that versus going through the GED?
The answer is yes, sir, and I will say that it's not a versus. I mean, this is, we are all playing the same game. So absolutely, if there is a young person that fits into that space, so most definitely, if it is feasible for them to go back through that process, then that is the best process for them. If it's more feasible for them to go through the GED, then so we will shepherd them through that process. But absolutely.
Yeah. Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Just
proceed.
But you do it as, I guess there is some orientation there to find out which one would best suit that person, that student.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I would think most of us would agree that a high school diploma is better than a GED if you can do it with the minimum effort. Thank you.
I have a question from Representative Raymond.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the demographics in some of these groups, both the larger group that does not have GEDs and the group that's been enrolled. It seemed like the majority of examples you gave us were immigrants, and then I wondered if you could speak to that population in particular.
Oh, so speak to that population. Yes, ma'am. So just from a demographic standpoint, if we even start with the, age breakdown, 75% of the individuals going through the GED process are 38 years old or younger. The largest group being the group between 20 and 24. From specifically to your question, that is a significant percentage of the persons that we serve in two ways. one, in the language space, but two, and I'll be candid, we have an opportunity to grow, to take those individuals through the GED process, because some of them may already have college, but it's not recognized. So that is a 50-meter target for them to complete that process and then move on and then get something that is recognized in this state so they can do the things that they choose to do. But that is a significant percentage of the population that we serve, most specifically in the language learning space, but we're transitioning them into the GED space based on the fact that some of them don't have something that is recognized in this country.
Dr. Gregory, thank you so much for coming forward and sharing the good work that's going on for adult education program. Thank you for your efforts, and if you ever have any questions or needs, feel free to reach out.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here today. Our last item on the agenda today, beside our administrative reg, is a presentation from Mickey Ray, Chief Academic Officer from KTE on the Textbook Commission. If she will come forward. Like I said, make sure those mics are pulled close to you and the green light is on. And please identify yourself for the record and administer the oath.
Mickey Ray, Chief Academic Officer.
There you
Mickey
go.
Ray, Chief Academic Officer at the Kentucky Department of Education.
Hi, good morning. I am Sarah Peace, and I am the Policy Advisor at the Department of Education.
Okay. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
Please proceed, and I will open this up. This subject came up because I know you all were before the Oversight and Investigations Committee on this subject last fall, and you recently submitted a report on June 1st.
Yes,
I believe staff has sent that answer to that report out to all the members, so all the members should have had that. So please proceed, Mickey.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, Co-Chair Tipton, Co-Chair West, members of the committee. I am happy to be here today to discuss the State Textbook Commission and the work that the Kentucky Department of Education and local districts are doing around instructional resource adoption and implementation. I would like to acknowledge 3 key members in the audience today from the Office of Teaching and Learning team. I have with me Crystal Rowland. She serves as the Director of the Division of Program Standards, and Professional Learning Coordinators Misty Higgins and Fox DeMosey. And their leadership in this work is just critical to KDE's efforts around high quality instructional resources. So thank them for joining me today as well. On the first slide, we wanted to start by just reminding you of the statutory basis for this work. So KRS 156.405 establishes that the purpose of the State Textbook Commission is to provide a recommended list of current and high quality textbook and instructional materials to local districts. They also are to provide a consumer guide to schools to aid in the selection of materials and to provide for public participation in this process. You'll see there in number 2, the Department of Education and the State Textbook Commission shall receive assistance in the textbook evaluation process from professionals and lay citizens who are referred to as textbook reviewers in that chapter of statutes. On the next slide, we have an overview of the statutory requirements of both of those groups. So you can see here for the State Textbook Commission, they are directing the activities of those textbook reviewers. They are developing and improving evaluation criteria. They are recommending a list of high quality materials, providing for public comment, and then publishing and distributing the consumer guides. The textbook reviewers are the content-specific, subject-specific reviewers who look at the materials and recommend those to be on the list to the State Textbook Commission. And part of their role is ensuring that the textbooks are free from any factual errors, anything that would prevent them from being on the approved list. But as I transition, I do want to point out that since the passage of our existing textbook statutes, the landscape for instructional resources has changed dramatically. So in 2022, KRS 160.345 was amended in Senate Bill 1 to give local superintendents the authority over instructional resource selection for their districts. This language is also seen in Senate Bill 9 of 2022, so in the Read to Succeed Act, and most recently in the Kentucky Numeracy Counts Act, House Bill 162 of 2024. But specifically in 160.345, in subsection 2G, it says the local superintendent shall determine which curriculum, textbooks, instructional materials, and student support services shall be provided in the school after consulting with the local Board of Education, the school principal, the school council, and after a reasonable review and response period for stakeholders in accordance with local board policy. So transparency, communication, consultation with educators, board members, students, families, and community members is a key part of the local selection process. And so the KDE has created many tools to assist local leaders in helping to ensure that that local voice is heard and that the consultation is a successful one. And I'll speak a little bit more to those more directly as I move forward in the presentation. But I do want to speak to why this change has happened. And so as you can see on this slide, this is something that we reference very often, and it focuses on strengthening Tier 1 instruction. And Tier 1 instruction is what's provided and afforded to all of Kentucky students in classrooms across our state. And if you look there at the beginning, vibrant student experience and access to grade level learning are the ultimate intent of our academic standards. But we recognize that schools and districts need support in implementing the standards at the local level in a way that truly impacts classroom experience for all students in Tier 1. So on this slide is a visual representation of the critical actions necessary for this to occur. It focuses on the movement from the vision that's established at the local level to the impacts of high quality instruction and improved student experience and outcomes. So articulating a common instructional vision for each content area is a key first step, and that should serve as a sieve as folks are looking for the best instructional resources that will align not only to our Kentucky academic standards, but to the district initiatives such as their Portrait of a Learner work, project-based learning, whatever that might be at the local level. So that vision is especially important. But next, local leaders must equip teachers and empower students with access to a strong local curriculum that is supported by high-quality instructional resources. So those resources provide the tools to actualize the vision. And the use of high-quality instructional resources in support of a strong local curriculum is critical for ensuring that students have access to grade-level, standards-aligned instruction. Yet, simply giving educators access to the HQIR is not enough to ensure that those instructional shifts are made and that the student experience and outcomes are improved. So educators need to engage in high-quality professional learning, you'll see that's number 3 there, that builds the understandings and skills that are part of the high-quality instruction for every student. So educators need curriculum-based professional learning, ongoing coaching, and support in how to implement the resource effectively in order to meet the diverse needs of the students who are in their classrooms. So that high-quality professional learning is the third key action, and it serves as a linchpin that connects the use of the HQIR to high-quality instruction and to the improved student experience. And when districts work to ensure that these pieces are in place, we will see the full impact on instruction and for student outcomes. So HQIRs, again, are a critical component of strengthening Tier 1. And with feedback from the Quality Curriculum Task Force, the instructional resource reviewers, and our pilot districts that have partnered with the Kentucky Department of Education, we've been able to establish the following definition of high-quality instructional resources. So I'm going to let you just take a look at those bulleted points there. But I want to clarify that these are not the textbooks of old. If you had an opportunity, and I would welcome you to, we have several samples at the department. I would love for you to be able to see what a true high quality resource looks like. So there are many more supports that are embedded for teachers, for the use of the classroom teacher, but also for the differentiation for the student experience so that they're able to meet the students where they are. And I do want to practice what we preach in terms of the evidence basis. So I wanted to bring forward, and I can get you more extensive information about these if you're interested, but I want to focus on just the first three there. So this is our evidence basis for this work. You can see there, SREB published a report in 2017 that found that HQIRs that are aligned to state standards can reduce variability in the quality of instruction across classrooms and help boost student achievement. So just access to that grade level learning that's found in the HQIR does in fact impact student outcomes. Secondly, there are students in classrooms that used one HQIR for 4 consecutive years outpaced comparison students by a margin of 38 percentile points. And that's equivalent to an additional 4 years of learning. Thirdly, in the absence of high-quality resources, teachers reported spending 7 hours per week or 250 hours per year, either developing or selecting their own resources. And we know from the RAND report, from other studies, that typically when teachers don't have access to district level resources, they're looking on Teachers Pay Teachers, Google, Pinterest. And so the reality is that those resources, they might link to our standards by name, but they certainly don't always match the rigor that's required within the Kentucky academic standards for any number of content areas. And so that's why we are advocating so passionately for teacher access to those resources for the benefit of the students in their classrooms. So in light of the change in the market from traditional textbooks to HQIR, I want to next share the actions we are currently taking at the KDE to support local districts in the evaluation and selection of instructional resources. And I also would like to offer, if you will allow me, just a few key recommendations for our work moving forward. So in the absence of sustainable funding for the commission, the agency has worked since 2019 to ensure that the key responsibilities of the State Textbook Commission have continued to be accomplished, but with a focus on optimal effectiveness and cost efficiency. So the first thing there on the review and selection side, you'll see that we did establish a quality curriculum task force. And this is made up of 21 members. It's composed of district leaders, teachers, library specialists, educational cooperative representatives, and university faculty. And members of the Quality Curriculum Task Force provide feedback on all of the tools and resources that you'll see on the second half of that slide, and any number of other resources. So they have been just such an important body of local leaders who are advising us on the tools and resources that are being created to support this work. Next, you can see there the KDE further meets with members of content-specific advisory panels and review committee established in KRS 158.6453. So these are our standards writers, as we call them, and they have the most expertise around that standards document. And so we have worked with our CAS standards writers to provide support for the characteristics of high quality, the alignment to the Kentucky academic standards as we move forward. So these are two key groups across the content areas that have been imperative to the work that we've done thus far. Also, you can see there on the second side, just to transition over, the KDE supports local high-quality instructional resource coordinators. This formerly was called the local textbook coordinator, but we are using words matter, and so we wanted to ensure that that was updated in Role Manager. And at this time, we have 166 identified local HQIR coordinators across the state for each district. And for the remaining districts, we communicate directly with the superintendent, which is appropriate as the superintendent has that ultimate selection authority per 160.345. You'll notice underneath that one that we have the model curriculum framework, and this is required in law in 158.6451. We have had a tremendous review and update of that particular document, and the entirety of the first section is for helping districts support districts in the curriculum development process. And so there are key tools for working with vendors that are a part of that process. We also have multiple documents for communicating with stakeholders, for eliciting public comment. We give recommendations for a communication plan. We have questions that would work well for varying stakeholders, for focus groups that can happen in consultation around these resources. And we also have a consensus protocol that is a part of the MCF. The KDE has published 3 consumer guides. So each guide has districts begin their evaluation process with the green rated resources from EdReports in light of their local instructional vision and initiatives. And just to speak to EdReports a little bit, they are a national nonprofit organization. Oftentimes you'll hear them referred to as the Consumer Reports of Instructional Resources. They are a for educator by educator organization that publishes free reviews of K through 12 instructional materials using an educator-led approach that measured standards alignment, usability, and other criteria as well. They review for-profit and nonprofit resources as well as open educational resources. And they actively work with Kentucky educators as part of their curriculum review teams. Kentucky superintendents can feel confident that green-rated resources have at least 80% alignment to our Kentucky academic standards. And that's significant because, as I mentioned, some of the other resources that are found on Teachers Pay Teachers, on Pinterest, it could be 20% alignment to our Kentucky academic standards. There are others who promote curriculum reviews as well. So for literacy specifically, the Knowledge Matters campaign, the Reading Lead, they offer some curriculum reviews. But EdReports is the most comprehensive source for external validation that we have access to as a state agency. And their curriculum review teams are selected for their content area expertise. Their reviewers spend over 150 hours evaluating each instructional resource series. So every reviewer on the team reviews every single page of those materials. And then lastly, for anything that is unrated, so if it is not a green rated resource, if it's not a part of the EdReports review, we have published instructional resource alignment rubrics. And obviously these are posted on kystandards.org for reading and writing, mathematics, science, social studies. But as you would hope, these rubrics are specifically tailored and aligned to the Kentucky academic standards to support local districts in the selection process. And typically this would happen for supplemental resources that are unrated on those national providers. So lastly, just a few things that I would like to mention. The KDE would welcome further discussion around amending existing textbook statutes to better align to the new landscape. But for KRS 156.405, which is the State Textbook Commission statute, specifically the KDE would recommend the following. So we would ask that the commission be renamed to denote the shift away from just the textbooks of old to instructional resources. And that may take the shape of the State High Quality Instructional Resources Commission or the Quality Curriculum Task Force in the capacity that we're currently using those committee members. Secondly, we would ask that we could repurpose the commission to focus on supporting local districts in evaluation, selection, and use by modifying their responsibilities to maximize their efforts. So you can see they're still developing and improving the selection criteria and evaluation forms, publishing the consumer guides, but rather than reviewing all the materials, ask those committee members to focus on the gateways, the selection criteria, the evaluation tools that would be used at the local level. We also seek to engage more stakeholder feedback as part of this process. So the the statute calls for a 10-member state textbook commission, and we have 21 members who are serving on the Quality Curriculum Task Force. And we found that by having those different role groups represented, we can move forward more confidently, that the tools that are being created, that the evaluation criteria is actually usable and consumable by local leaders who have that charge of selecting the best resources for their local districts. We also are looking at the advisory panel and review committee members rather than using just the 12 textbook reviewers as described in the law. So we have approximately 30 folks who work on the standards review teams, and we would love to be able to continue utilizing their expertise as a part of this important work. And then again, ensuring that we are promoting and effectively communicating with local school districts about the existing tools that are already created to assist them in this process. Number 4, just repurposing the funding and directing it toward local district use and purchase of HQIRs. So if Kentucky educators are not reviewing the materials themselves, funding can be directed toward local district use and the actual purchase of high quality resources. So members of the commission and instructional resource reviewers would of course be reimbursed for any travel, mileage, sub costs that may be needed. But if you're familiar with the report, the cost of sustaining the textbook commission and instructional resource reviewers is near $500,000. And so this would be a significant saving to the funding, and I would argue would get the funding to the folks that need it, the local districts, the local superintendents, in order to purchase the best resources they possibly can for their students that they're serving. And then lastly, requiring reporting of resource adoption to the KDE. So right now, that is not a part of the statute. We do have a voluntary survey that occurs. In the most recent one, we had 136 districts report on their instructional resources. And what we've done, we've developed a dashboard. So if they participate in the survey, they're able to have access to the dashboard for networking. I would love to see in the future potential cost-saving mechanisms where districts can come together around curriculum-based professional learning over the resources just for cost sharing. So there are many ways that we are utilizing that voluntary survey data, but we do think we would have improved reporting if there was the statutory requirement for that. So at this time, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have, and thank you so much, Chair Tipton.
Mickey, thank you for that presentation and update. It's obvious we've gone beyond textbooks.
Yes, sir.
And we've got a statute in place that is really not relevant to the current situation. How confident are you today that across the state in the 171 districts that high quality instructional resources are being used in the classroom for our students?
I can confidently say that we have made significant gains in the adoption rates, and I'm sure you have members on the committee itself who can speak to that and the resources that they're able to utilize and have adopted within their districts. We are seeing, since we have updated the model curriculum framework and have the regular convenings for our HQIR coordinators, the survey shows that each year more and more districts are making that adoption. There are other things that happened, such as the requirement in Senate Bill 156 of 2023 that's connected to the Read to Succeed Act for that adoption for K-3 literacy, those comprehensive reading programs. That deadline is July 1 of 2024. So frankly, the legislation has helped to move that along. But the most encouraging thing is what we're hearing from the field. The implementation is not easy. It does take time, but students are going home and they're able to talk to parents about what they're learning. They're reporting that back to school and district leaders. And so we're hearing positive things about the adoptions. And so I think that word of mouth, if the KDE can allow for that networking among districts, then we're going to see that continue to grow across the Commonwealth.
Okay, thank you. Co-Chair West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a couple questions, but before I ask the questions, just for clarification, the material and the process you're talking about, it's presented to superintendents, it's out there, but it's not mandated, correct? That superintendent can still after consultation with others, make their own independent decision about curriculum, correct?
So I will say it is mandated as a part of Read to Succeed for K3. So that comprehensive literacy program is a KDE determined, valid, and reliable. So that's where they start. Also in House Bill 162 of 2024, the Numeracy Counts Act, it has that same language. So I think that we will also see more adoptions around K3 mathematics. But what we're finding, Senator, is that with those elementary requirements, the adoptions are made K5, so it's impacting students in grades 4 and 5 as well, not solely limited to K3. And another fascinating thing is that we see a lot more mathematics resources being adopted in middle school than we would anticipate in the absence of a policy lever. So it's the good news is that I think, as I noted earlier, we are seeing an increase in adoptions, and I think we are working very hard to get the best resources and tools in the hands of superintendents and their teams so that they're equipped to make the best choices they possibly can.
So walk us through today, if you all do the textbook commission does their work, how is that officially presented to a superintendent, SBDM, or whoever wants to look at it? How do they see it?
Sure. So as part of the curriculum development process, the first step, as I noted, the district leaders who are a part of this team, that would include superintendent and or his or her designee, they would begin to develop that instructional vision that would help to create that sieve so that they could pick the best resources for the school. And all of that is published online in the model curriculum framework. And then
So that's my main question. So all the work of the textbook commission is published online and available to the superintendents and SBDMs, whoever wants to see that.
Yes, sir. So all of that is posted on KY Standards. We have links for that on the Kentucky Department of Education website as well. Now, I will say, just as a point of clarification, it's not framed as the work of the State Textbook Commission, since that hasn't been in place, but everything is openly available. So it's published online, but we also provide numerous meetings. The team that's here today has had many meetings, March leadership meetings, where this has been a significant topic of conversation, the meetings that occur bi-yearly with the HQIR coordinators. So there are numerous, the superintendent's webcast, we've discussed this. So there are numerous entry points into the tools and resources to support them in the work.
So final question, Mr. Chairman, is this, so it's online, is it available to the general public, to parents to view as well?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Representative Massaroni.
Hi, thank you. I just have a quick comment. One of my biggest complaints from my teachers in my area is the lack of resources and curriculum. They spend hours, according to them, searching for appropriate material for their students. So what kind of disconnect do we have between your agency and the actual teachers that teach the curriculums? I'm just, that's their biggest complaint. You're saying you have these resources available to them, but according to most of the teachers I talk to, that's a really big issue with them having to spend hours every evening trying to find appropriate stuff for their students.
So there's a significant difference between the local adoption of a resource and the supports that are needed to implement it effectively. So it may be a case in which that district has adopted the HQIR and there needs to be more professional learning to help the teacher know how to utilize the resource effectively. The building administrator, those building principals, are critical in supporting faculty and utilizing the resources effectively, looking for that and setting the expectation for that as they do walkthroughs and other things. But those teachers may also be in a district in which they have not made a broad adoption of high quality instructional resources. And so then they are left to go and curate and find their own resources. But I will say for those districts, if they are elementary school teachers, for K3, there is now that legal basis where they must have access to an HQIR as their comprehensive reading program. Absolutely.
Next, we have Senator Thomas.
Good afternoon, Ms. Ray.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Ms. Ray, what we've seen across this country in the last 3 years, and Kentucky is certainly no exception. There's a lot of politicalization of textbook and their uses. Here in Kentucky, some school districts have formed advisory panels of parents across all demographic criteria to try to mitigate against that, so that we can find textbooks that are both educational as well as being age appropriate for their students. Oh, not all school districts have done that. I see that you've recommended having what you call quality curriculum task force. Would KDE support that having school districts, develop these advisory panels, all school districts develop these advisory panels of parents, again, across a wide range of demographic criteria to address this textbook issue and try to move away from the politicalization that we've seen in the last 3 years across America and here in Kentucky as well?
Senator Thomas, I think our current guidance absolutely supports that. If speaking back to 160.305, that consultation of community members of school-based councils is still a required part of the process. And so the superintendents that I've spoken with, they want feedback from communities, from parents and families, because frankly, they don't want to make an investment in a resource that ultimately then receives pushback and they're unable to use. So that's why our team has focused a lot of our efforts on the tools and resources around communication with numerous stakeholders to ensure that that district is set up to be successful and that they're able to select the resource that fits the needs of their communities and that would be supported by parents and families in that area.
I have a question from Senator Titchener.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your work. You always do a tremendous job. So my question, you referenced the SREB in 2017, talking about how the HQIRs are helping to boost student achievement. Do we have any data of how that's helping Kentucky students in their test scores and their results?
So we don't yet see that reflected in the big capital S summative assessment, but we are hearing very encouraging things in the literacy space. And I was able to share with Chair Tipton and Chair West that we have participated in an evaluation of the letters professional learning. It was a third-party evaluation. And I am very excited to say that, and I want to share that with you all as well, that they're finding that in 4th and 5th grade, that there are improved outcomes based on the students who have access to HQIR versus those in comparison situations that do not have access to it. I also am very hopeful that part of the work of our Reading Research Center will be able to hone in onto which resources truly do make the best gains in terms of the Kentucky student experience. And a test is not everything, but we do want the student experience to be improved. And if we don't see movement in those outcomes, then I will say we have not fully done our job in supporting schools and districts. And so I am hopeful that we'll be able to narrow down more granularly around which programs are having the most success. But we do need the support of partners to really be able to get to that grain size.
Can I follow up really quick?
Go ahead, Senator.
Just really quickly, the research report that you all just submitted regarding K-12 curriculum development and instructional materials, it mentioned that the State Textbook Commission hasn't met since 2015 due to insufficient funding. Do we have a comparable cost comparison between textbook funding versus HQIRs and what that difference is going to look like as far as what funding our schools are going to need in order to have those resources available?
So each year we do have a budget request that comes before the Kentucky Board of Education and you as well that points to our estimation on the amount of funding needed. And it is a significant amount. So not for the commission's activities, that would be around, as I noted, $500,000. But I would love to advocate for somewhere near $17 million for local school district usage for adoption and implementation of those resources, and not just for the resources alone, but for that associated professional learning that is critical in ensuring that educators are able to effectively utilize those resources.
On a side note, Mickey, you mentioned the Reading Research Center.
Yes,
Had
sir.
a press conference yesterday. That was part of Senate Bill 156,
yeah.
Senator West bill. Would you share with the committee who was selected for that and the work that's going to be going on with that?
Happy to do so. So the University of Louisville was selected for the Kentucky Reading Research Center, and Dr. Amy Lingo will serve as the executive director of that. And we are so grateful to have this new partner and are very excited about the potential for both the research and the clearinghouse that will be created. You know, we have to find a way we talk about evidence-based practices. Well, we have to have a way to get those into the hands of educators so that they have access to the research, so that they know what is in the best interest of students. And we're looking to the center to really build out that clearinghouse in year one.
Thank you. Also, this is a conversation we're going to have to continue over
Yes,
there.
sir.
And thank
Yes.
you all for being here today. Appreciate
Thank you.
your presentation. Last item on the agenda, we do have consideration of an administrative regulation, 704 KAR 003 :095 has been proposed. There should be a copy of that in your packet. Anybody have any? And I believe this is probably in response to Senate Bill 9 from
It is.
2022.
Yes, sir.
So this is Senator West's fault. But anybody have any comments or questions on the proposal? Representative Bojanowski.
I just want to say I'm grateful that it expands the MTSS from K through 3 to K through 12, because we're losing students as they get older if they haven't achieved to a point by third grade. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments. Yes, Senator West has a comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say I support the regulation.
Glad to hear that. I will note in your packet, and you should have had this emailed to you. We're going to get to you in a second. There is information that if you would like, there is a link in here, Kentucky Department of Education, that they sent out a lot of publications, a lot of information about a lot of different subjects. This will help you stay informed on a lot of what's going on at KDE and the programs they're offering. So that link is available to you. Senator Funky Fromeyer had a comment, question.
Yes, so many discussions by our superintendents and a lot of our school leaders about allowing for growth assessment. And I apologize, I did not get to read this thoroughly before. Is this recognizing the need to identify the growth of the student per year or per academic cycle?
So this isn't a part of the accountability system. It's a separate regulation around a multi-tiered system of support. So it would provide really support for the whole child, as we say as educators. So supports for what's happening in Tier 1, which we've addressed today. Tier 2, where you would have students who need more intensive interventions, and then even fewer students who would be supported with even more intervention supports at Tier 3 to K-12. Yes.
Senator, there will probably be an agenda item later on the agenda that's more specific to recommendations on accountability and assessment changes. Those discussions are going on. All right. Representative Proctor, you were recognized as a new member before you got here, but we're glad to have you here on the Interim Joint Committee for Education. All right. Our next meeting is July. I'll find it here in a minute. July the 16th. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.